The American way calls for you to take out the top dog. It's all capitalism, it's all competition, it's all pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And so when you're talking about Barack and you're talking about McCain or Hillary, they don't play necessarily by the rules where you march 10 steps, turn around and fire. They're gonna fire when you're still walking, a lot of them. And that's how it is in politics. Politics is dirtier than anything we can imagine. Politics is dirtier than hip hop. I do believe that a lot of people relate to that early 50. Now I think a lot of people see him as more of a looming monster that just imposes his will on people. But I think that people can relate to that power that they all want. Barack knows exactly how he has to present himself. He can't be aggressive, then he's an angry black man. He can't be soft, then he's a weak man. So he has to walk that line.
Well, since at least 1972, the Republican Party has been able to frame themselves not just as the party of white people, but as the party of white men and real men. And they've been able to feminize the Democratic Party at the same time. The key constituency for this marketing attempt is white working and middle class voters, and in particular the area that I focus on is white working class men, because white working class men in the last several elections have voted wildly disproportionately for the Republican candidate against their own economic interests. And I'm arguing, and I would argue, that one of the reasons why so many white working class men in 2000 and 2004 voted for the Republican candidate against their own economic interests is that the success of the Republican marketing strategy over the past generation has presented a case that if you're a real man, if you're a man who has a certain definition of manhood, you're strong, you're tough on crime, you understand the realities of the dangerous world that we live in, then you're going to vote for Republicans. They've been so successful at this marketing strategy that what Barack Obama is facing is he's going to have an onslaught by the Republicans over the next several months of attacks on his masculinity, and that's going to resonate with a certain constituency of white working and middle class men who have been conditioned to believe that the Democratic Party is kind of a wimpy party. And the way that that works is it's a very class-coded wimpiness. So they'll use the word effete. He's upper class. He doesn't understand the average people. He can't get down and dirty with average folks. It'll be talked about in a class-coded way, but what they're really talking about is his masculinity.
The similarities between Barack Obama and 50 Cent. They're both straight, you know. They're both dominant in their views, you know. They both feel entitled as men to be in the positions of power that they're in, right? There's definitely similarities between Barack Obama and 50 Cent. But again, their representation of masculinities is targeted to different segments of the population, right? Barack Obama's representation of manhood is more targeted to those who aspire to be middle class, those who are middle class, right? Whereas 50 Cent's form of masculinity targets those of like the lower class or working class men, right? And so for me, I fall kind of like in between, right? As most men do, right? Because we can't live to the standard of Barack Obama running for president or 50 Cent, you know, multi-platinum, you know, billionaire, you know, doing his business, right? And you only see these two forms of masculinity play in mass media, right? As if leaving a limited choice for our men to choose, right? And not understanding that there's a whole spectrum out there of masculinities, right? But Barack Obama's masculinity represents a more middle-class, intellectual form of masculinities that some of our folks can gravitate to if they're not this working-class, lower-class form of masculinity 50 Cent represents.
Barack Obama masculinity, I think, is a clear break with the kind of masculinity that we see in 50 Cent. Because of that, there's a clear questioning by both black people and white people regarding Barack Obama's masculinity. Is he tough enough? Tough enough compared to who? Is 50 Cent 50 Cent? Is that brand of masculinity real, or is it shaped by representations of black males in our culture that's rooted in a particular history of slavery, lynching, and in our times, police brutality and violence? something that's very attractive about 50. He has ambition, he has swagger, he has bravado. He is striving for something other than what he is. Because I think it's in line with this idea or these notions of the American dream. You know, apparently 50 has, you know, children and, you know, women in his life who we never see because it doesn't fit with this hyper-masculine, sexualized, sexist, misogynistic understanding of black masculinity that I feel like he's peddling. But when we see Barack, we see him with his family, we see him with his daughters, we see him on the podium with his wife. Listen, we all want a Barack Obama. You know what I mean? If I wasn't gay, I'd want a Barack Obama, marry me a Barack. He calls into question our understanding of black masculinity. And our black people's relationship to not only gender but sexuality as well, which I think it's very threatening not only to black people but to white people in the dominant culture. What do we do with a Barack Obama?